Hey, gang. How's everyone going? I'm live a smidge, a touch early because I want to talk about a couple things before my guests get here. So, if you don't know, today is 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope 2025 never happens again. Let's go into 2026. Let's be strong. Let's turn the tables right around and we'll get it going. No, actually, I can't complain too much. 2025 was a very lucrative year for me. I grew a lot, and here we are. But politically, oof, the rough one, gang. Not a lot got done. That was good. Stagnation all across the board, economically, politically, etc. Just for the nation, right, in general. Sucks, but hopefully 2026 will be better. We'll get into it. How you doing, Mattel? Yeah, this is scheduled at 6. I hope you're here. Aaron Gray, nice to see you. Manny to the Max, also nice to see you. I'll start bringing on my guests, and we'll get going, right? I hope, maybe, perhaps. Excuse me. Okay, let me stop fucking around and get this shit on the road. Hello, you're live, by the way.
Hello, hello.
People can hear you and see you. So just FYI, in case you didn't know, we are live.
Slurs.
We are live. Okay. Prime says he's going to be a few minutes late, and that's fine. We'll get started when Cory gets here. But yeah, if you got cameras, put them on. And let me see if your audio works. I can hear you, Drazi. I don't know about you, Schwango. Schwango, say a few things.
Yeah, I'm here. What's up, buddy?
Okay, great. We can hear both of you, and that's what's important. But it should be a good show today. How was everyone's New Year's Eve?
Good. I had I worked, but then actually, no, that's not true. It was bad. People fired off fucking guns by my house. It was fucking terrible. It woke me up, and I couldn't get back to sleep.
They're just shooting off firearms?
I thought somebody was pounding on my door, and I thought, oh, for sure it's fireworks. So I opened up my door and looked outside, up at the sky. No fireworks. It was clearly, being outside, clearly gunshots. Yeah, dude, Indiana fucking sucks.
Well, I had a good New Year's Eve night. I'm sorry yours didn't go well. That sucks, and hopefully there's no bullet holes.
I said yeah.
I mean, it's just a polite thing to do. How about you, Schwango? How was your New Year's Eve?
Oh, man, I'm coming off of COVID, so not so good. It was in bed, body aches, fever, all the trimmings.
Oh, that's well, at least it was during the holiday, I guess.
I know. I slept through all the gunshots over here.
Yeah, I guess so. Cory Campbell, how's it going up in Canada?
Good evening. Snowy. I had a snowstorm overnight.
Was your New Year's Eve good, bad, ugly, indifferent?
No complaints. I watched the Stranger Things finale. It's more or less.
What did you think of that?
I thought a better. I'm not going to spoil anything, but a better ending than Game of Thrones. I think that overall, did it pretty well. Not
that's perfect. A pretty low bar to set.
I don't disagree. But I think they sort of did the best that they could.
Is the camera working? Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
I can see.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit drawn out towards the end, but overall, I think they wrapped up the storylines pretty okay.
It was about an hour too long, in my opinion.
An hour or two? Okay. I could understand maybe 30 minutes or something like that. An hour, so literally. Well, okay, obviously not spoiled, but not okay. Interesting. Wow.
I don't know. I didn't look. At the end of the day, Stranger Things was fine. I think the earlier seasons were much better than the later seasons, and you're correct. It didn't end as abruptly and as unsatisfyingly as Game of Thrones did. However, I wouldn't say it ended well. I think this season was kind of weak, and I found myself just not caring about most of the characters. I just did not care what happened to them, frankly, at the end.
Yeah, because, understandable, since well, again, without spoiling anything, but there was less time for character development because like it was pretty much all action oriented, right? They got to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
stuff. So I
Okay.
take your point, and yeah, I would
Yeah.
say it's definitely not up there in like the best endings, but sort of like middle of the pack of like, oh,
Fair enough.
it's all right.
Fair enough.
I
So
can add something about the season.
say one more time.
I just want to. I have like one comment on the season. I
ahead.
thought that they did the coming out thing like super well, better than almost any show I've ever seen.
That's a whole different debate altogether.
I usually cringe super hard when it happens in TV shows and stuff, and I thought it was pretty real and like not overdone. It was good. I thought it was really
It
good.
was okay-ish.
I had no strong opinions on that scene, frankly. I don't know. Like I said, I don't care about the characters. I did not care about the characters. They look. Well, I'll be real. They were 30-year-olds playing high school students, and that always throws me off. Okay, when you have people who look like they're 30 freaking years old playing a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old or something.
Wick, you're old enough that's what they did literally back in the day.
I know, and
Saved
it
by the Bell
annoyed
and all
me
that,
then too. How you doing, Prime?
Doing okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Once you get your camera
okay,
going,
yeah.
we'll get this party started. We're live, by the way. Everyone can see and hear us. So
Okay, cool.
Okay, great. Well, you're actually on time, so thank you, all of you, for being here. I really appreciate all of you. Okay, so welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. It's the first show of the year, and I wanted to come together with people who are on the left to various degrees and talk about what Democrats should be doing in 2026. Should they be moderating their message? Should they be moving further to the left? How do we win in the midterms coming up in 2026? How do we best serve our constituents and best serve the American people? We've gathered some great people to talk about it. I'm going to give them each a chance to introduce themselves and give us opening thoughts on these things. I'm going to hand the mic first to Schwango, and we're just going to go around. Okay, Schwango, tell people who you are, what you do, why we should care about what you say, and what your thoughts are.
Hey, Schwango here. I hung out in Wix chats every once in a while. Started to jump in. He says he seems to like what I have to think and say about some things, other things less so. I'm just an old blue dog Democrat, man. I worked construction 22 years. I'm very fluent in blue collar. I know what a lot of these guys want. I know what they value. I know what they need. And the only way we're going to actually continue to win elections moving forward in a meaningful way is by speaking to what people value, speaking to people want, speaking to what people need. And the only way we're going to get that is coming from a moderate center left position. And then only then can we even hope to entertain some of the further, while they may be altruistic, but, progressive values, things that people ought to care about rather than what they do care about.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. We're going to give the mic to Cory Campbell, please.
Well, I'm Cory Campbell. You can find me on Twitch, Cory Campbell 84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, Substack. It's Cory Campbell. And also thank you, Wick, for inviting me to be here. Always grateful. Nothing I would want to start the year off or on than yelling at some people, maybe throwing a few slurs around, which I'm totally known for. But yeah, looking forward to getting into it. So I don't necessarily disagree with what Schwango necessarily just said, but I guess it all comes down to, in my mind, like, what do you mean by moderate, or, appealing to moderates or centrists? Where, like, for example, okay, at least some of the data that I have seen, it's like, a slight majority of Americans think that, basically the federal government should be responsible for healthcare. Is that a moderate position or a far left position or progressive position? I would say progressive. I think a slight majority of Americans support a $15 federal minimum wage. Is that a moderate position or a progressive position. I think that's more progressive than moderate. And also, just sort of overall, in a nutshell, you know, did the right gain power again with Trump by moderating? I don't think so. I think they've just gone further direction. And I think there's good reasons to believe that, there have been, let's say, Mom Downey won. So there have been, let's say, progressives winning or far left progressives winning. And I think that is potentially a signal and to something to incorporate in terms of, I think there's good reason to believe that maybe leaning into that, maybe not that far, but leaning more on that left would be a good thing. And I'll leave it there for now. We'll get into the details.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Happy to have you for the first show of the year. Next up, someone who hasn't been on my show in a while either, Elder Drazi. What are your thoughts?
You're muted, man.
Uh-oh, you muted yourself.
There we go. Yeah, I've been gone for a while. It's been about a year since I've been doing this stuff, but I'm moved and I'm back on my feet. So here I am. So first of all, Cory, I probably agree with a lot of what you said. I think that what you said, even by your own admission, is pretty moderate. If you're saying everybody agrees with it, I'd like to build bridges with
Not
you
everybody.
guys in this conversation. So I'm gonna just kind of tell you what I think. I think that you guys are going to say that moderation is not exciting. We need enthusiasm. I don't think that works. It doesn't count for double votes. And it hasn't worked for us so far. I think you guys are going to talk about how centrism is just the status quo and how people want change. I agree that people want change, but I think they want measured change. Radical swings usually lead to backlash. Going into the midterms, I think that we want to be more reasonable and focused on what we can actually achieve, that people can believe, and so that way we don't end up losing the presidential election in the next cycle. And then I don't think that we'll be compromising our morals to win. If you guys think that that's what the problem is, and most of all, I think that we really need to look at the Overton window and how far you guys want to shift it from where we are right now. Trump won by a landslide. I think that inching it forward, back, or inching it back towards the left is the way to go, and not slamming it all the way open and then just watch all the undecided and moderate voters flood into the MAGA camp. I think we need to be pragmatic. We want to win, and we want to take that strength going into the next presidential election and try to get some sanity back to the country.
Okay, thank you for being here. Really excited to have this discussion. And last but certainly not least, Primecayes, go ahead.
Thank you for having me here. I just want to note that as soon as I came on, Wick was surprised that I was here on time. Also, independently from that, I'm black. I don't know. But I appreciate, I'm happy to have all these other people here. The extent of my objection will be dependent on their stale, cold centrism, right? So I actually want to hear more before, and because we might be able to, like what was it that Elder Drazi said, build bridges, and this might not be too contentious, but it depends on exactly what each side's mean. So I'll do some listening, and I'll decide where I'm at.
Okay, well, before we start, $5 for my listening library to say Happy New Year. Hope everyone pushes to make their personal 2026 better than 2025. Thanks for the content. You're welcome. And then $5 from Zephyr Hash to say, simple question is that can the corporate Democrat deliver on affordability? What are the policies they will push for? If they can't, then run progressives. So I guess my first question to all of you, right? And thank you for the $5. But first question to all of you, right? Like, Schwango, when you say center-left moderate positions, what do you mean? And then we can go. What are Democrats, I guess the question I have for all of you is, what are Democrats doing wrong? And what do you want them to change? Go ahead.
Well, currently what they're doing wrong is losing all favor with the American public. The image of the Democrat Party is in shambles, at least historically, up until this point, until people can see now that MAGA is just falling apart, because it's going down the predictable path of populism, which is it'll inevitably turn into a purity test. You know, you have the Candace Owens and the Nick Fuentes and the Tucker Carlsons and the Ben Shapiro's, and everybody's just like, no, you're not America first. I'm America first, right? We spiraled into that a little bit, not as bad as this, but a little bit. God, a few years ago, when wokeness was dying down, as far as like falling out of public relevance, right? So to that prompt, the super chat, I want to actually answer that. Yes, a corporate Democrat can. And to Kai's point, it's not that we want center left policies. It's we need to go about left policies in a center left way so that it's actually tolerable. It can actually be stomached by people. Meaning, we do need to care for people's well-being. We do need to care for people's health care. We do need to care for these things. But we can't do it in a shove everything in a blender, hold your mouth open, and jam it down your throat way, right? Well, we ought to because it's and then sit on a moral high horse and pretend like that's good enough reason to do it because that's not tolerable. It's not digestible. It's not doable in a short time frame. Some things maybe, most things probably not. But that's what I'm speaking to of a center left.
What you mean by
Okay, so you have it. Yeah, sorry, you haven't actually told us anything. I'm here.
And also,
like,
I'm curious what you mean by. I just want to say, like, what do you mean by shoving down, or like this is the wrong strategy? Things are being shoved down your throat. What do you have?
Yeah, you're using a lot of metaphors here, but they don't actually tell us anything.
What I'm talking about is, to give an example of the, like white guilt's at an all-time high back then, right? Now, that's not easily digestible to most white people, even though it's factually true that there's a lot of white privilege in this country. It's factually true, but it's not digestible, right? So to browbeat people about it, especially low-income people, it's not going to work. So you can't start shoving out policy based off this.
The white guilt policy? I didn't catch that.
Could you explain what
No.
policy
This
that
is
is?
why DEI doesn't have. This is why DEI has been weaponized the way it has, right? Is because it like to conservatives that is the white guilt policy is the current version of DEI. That's why it's failing. That's why Trump's doing everything in his power to undo it, even though he's using it for himself in ways he sees fit. It's a fine idea, and we can actually make workable policy from it, but it can't be in a shove down your throat kind of way.
So what policies? Sure. So could you help us expand on this? What policies do you see, like, and I mean like actual policies, not like a slogan, right? Because there's plenty of slogans on both sides, right? But like what policy from the left, the progressive left, the far left, however you want to define that, do you see that's being pushed that equals that, right?
Well, that's kind of a trick question because there aren't really any progressive policies because there aren't really any progressive politicians. Right? At least the ones that have any power in that way. It's the moderate Democrats are the ones that hold the power. But they pander to the progressives because it's politically expedient. It's what earns them their brownie points.
They pander to people who don't have any power?
Not political power, voting power, sure. But not actually people that are sitting in Congress.
Hold on. If these people have voting power, right? If that's what you're saying, right? I'm just like trying to follow your logic here, right? If they have more voting power than the other side, right? Then why wouldn't you pander to them, right? If that is actually the case.
Well, they did pander to them only in thought. But what was the number one complaint you guys had against Biden? Is that he wasn't progressive enough, right? He didn't get he didn't get healthcare completely taken over to the federal government on that level.
Is that the number one complaint against Biden?
It's one of them. It's among.
Can I build on that?
You're talking about Biden round one or Biden round two?
Go ahead, Drazi.
It'd probably be the genocide that he sponsored. That might be the number one.
Okay, let's
maybe
give
in
it
this space, but not everyday Americans.
Hold on. We're talking about the progressive one. You're talking about the progressive left, the thing that you guys are saying is the big bad problem, right? Progressives and leftists had a problem with the genocide, correct? Or unless you're saying, Again, like the reason why I'm asking these questions is just to really define, right? Because I'm hearing slogans and like a lot of like amorphous bad guy somewhere, right? Like the woke left. And the wokeness is really bad, right? This is all very meaningless. So I'm just trying to solidify exactly what we're talking about. But please,
Okay, but do you think Trump won because of the genocide?
Yes, actually, I do.
That's a
I think
joke.
there was a path to victory.
Let's give it to
No,
Drazi.
it's not a joke. Excuse me, that's not a joke. Don't dismiss me. I actually have looked at the numbers, right? I actually have numbers backing me on this. I've actually looked at the numbers. Yes, there was a path to victory for Kamala Harris. She lost electorally by a landslide, however, not by raw votes. She could have gotten those voters who stayed home. There's only a small sliver in each state, right? That could have led her to a path of victory. So either she lost by a sliver because of a policy that she could have changed completely, right? She could have easily changed on, right? Or she lost by a lot, and not because of the genocide, but because she didn't actually offer anything to anyone, and the voters were rejected. Which one? Why did Kamala lose?
There's 1,000 reasons that have been speculated on why Kamala lost. It's probably just that. It's probably death by 1,000 cuts. But if you're waiting for like the youth vote or disenfranchised voters that we've been waiting for 50 years to show up and start voting, that is a joke. We need to focus on what we know
Joe Biden
works.
voters from before. That's that out, actually.
People voted for Joe Biden because he wasn't Trump, period. They weren't thrilled about Joe Biden. Most people that voted for Joe Biden were not like, I'm super excited to vote for Joe Biden, despite the fact that he was the most progressive president that we've had in literally ever. So progressivism isn't the thing that's pulling people in. I think the thing that's turning people off, which is what we really need to be focusing on, there's people that would be willing to vote blue, but they're not, because while we have really popular positions like universal health care or something like that, single payer, which polls extremely high, even in red states, or taxing the rich, which almost everybody's in favor for, we turn around and say shit that turns off so many people, like we need to defund the police or we need completely open borders. We're not taking measured responses to things that people care about. Even people on the left.
It has a Democratic backed defund the police.
I'm saying that these are the kinds of things that.
Okay, so there's a slogan that was made
here.
There was a slogan that was made, right, that didn't have any power, didn't have any policy behind it, right? According to Schwango here. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. But that was the reason that we lost, right? Not policy that was actually pushed out.
Well, I would say the difference in how the left approaches our borders is a problem. We're not tough enough on it, even for people on the left already, and I think that hurts us a lot with the moderates as well.
Did the left, the progressive left or whatever, push that was put into law that put us in this position?
I would say a lack of policy on controlling it would be the problem.
Hold on, a lack of okay, all right. So let me understand this, right? So under the Biden administration,
like you're doing now, like the very idea that. Like, real quick, before I continue this, can you explain to me what Maslow's hierarchy of needs are?
No, I'm not gonna. I don't care about I don't care about that.
Because that's how you win elections. You ought to care.
Yeah. Okay,
it starts at the bottom on what do I need? I need food. I need shelter. I need protection. Okay, that's what people care about. People don't care about people in fucking Palestine being killed when their economy is being tariffed into oblivion. They don't care. They just don't. And the fact
but that was fun. We're talking about. We're just talking about the Biden administration.
One at a time.
Progressives need to be violently ejected. If you can't engage at a pragmatic level on what people actually care about. Like you're lost. You're just lost. You're just lost in your own moral high horse sauce.
Yeah, sure. So in any case, we were just talking about the Biden administration, but then he sneaks in the tariffs that came under the Trump administration after Kamala Harris lost. All right, we can ignore that. But in any case, right? So you guys want to talk about something more pragmatic. Okay, well, tell us, what the example given already was immigration, and then progressives are blamed, right? The ones who, according to Schwango, have no political power, right? Who have there's no progressive policy, right? So that doesn't exist. But Biden was in charge, right? And so Biden, appealing to progressives who had no policy, he didn't put anything forward, and then that's why we lost.
I didn't say he appealed to progressives. I said he was the most progressive. The problem with the progressive base is that nothing's ever good enough. And also, I don't think that we need to appeal to
What
the
was
people
Biden's
that we already have
position on the
unlocked.
border? What was Biden's progressive position on the border?
I'm saying that he didn't have any. Here's the thing too. You can't really draw a line
the
between
progressive position
when it
is
comes
no
to
position.
when it comes to these kinds of issues. The messaging is equally, if not more important than the actual policy
it's more
is
important
right now.
than any policy. Okay, so people on the streets, right?
Hold on,
Republicans
hold
want
on,
a
just
no
real quick,
policy.
just real quick. Do you disagree with that, Prime? That messaging matters and what people vote on more than the actual policy? Do you disagree with that?
No, I don't. People actually vote on policy. Actually vote on. They actually vote on the things that affect their
What
lives.
policies won Trump
For
the
instance,
election?
Hold on. Literally Schwango was just crying about the tariffs, right? The tariffs that Trump put in place, first of all, right? I don't know, whatever. But that is a policy, right? Yeah, and people on. So hold on. So that's an example of policy that is bad, right? And it's affecting
they will
right
accept
now more than a slogan that is passed around on Twitter.
They're taking it. They chose it. They chose
messaging. There's nothing to say that messaging is
You just proved my point.
Hold on, one at a time, please.
Unimportant, but like but to say that like it's equally as important to policy can point of messaging can be changed at any point in time. Policy, once it's put in place and enacted on, right? Like that's something solid that any opponent can write on and always point to.
Did you just say messaging can be changed at any point? Look at what's going through right now. It's not over policy. It's over culture stuff. It's over messaging. It's tearing them apart right now.
That's right.
Policy on Epstein. The policy on Epstein is tearing them up. The policy on immigration, because they want more harsh immigration reform, that's tearing them up. The tariffs, right, that are destroying the economy, that's tearing them up, right? The policy.
What policy did Trump run on that he won in the election?
The policy of sending money to Israel. They don't care about the Palestinians, like you said. That part's true, at least on the right. They don't care about that. They care about Trump not actually being America first, right? So continuing that, or also the policy of starting.
What's the policy of America first? That sounds like messaging.
I just no. All those are policies. What are you talking about? Hold on. Do you not? Hold on. Wait a second. Drazi, help me out here. Do you understand what policy is, right? Enacted actions by the administration. The 5 things I just gave you are actually enacted policy.
America first is messaging.
No, hold on. It's but it's not. It's messaging pointing to a policy that's not enacted. So the policy that he is enacting. Hold on. I'm answering your question. The policy that is enacted, right, is giving money to foreign countries. That's the actual policy, right? And then we talked about immigration, right? He promised, right? This is the messaging, but he promised a record of deportations. He hasn't delivered that yet, right? And the right wants it. They're bloodthirsty. He promised. That's right. I listed a whole bunch of other things.
There is no greater proof
the tariffs reform.
that
The
policy
tariffs. He promised the tariffs. He promised the tariffs would bring jobs back and get us to a roaring economy. The tariffs have not done that. Tariffs are a big mess. These are all policies he's putting in place.
Wait.
That's bad policy that has gotten a lot of positive spin from his base because his messaging.
No, it hasn't. Have you been following the right? No, it hasn't.
We got hold on. We got to give it to Drazi. Let Drazi finish his point, and then we'll give it to Schwango. So Drazi, that's all we're going to go in. Drazi, Schwango, and then I see you, Cory. We'll get to you. Go ahead, Drazi.
How many times have each one of us debated Republicans when the tariffs were announced and shortly after they were enacted? Short time pain for long time gain. Like it is It was obviously stupid. It was obviously detrimental to anybody who looked at the actual policy being put forth, and everybody who supported him didn't give a shit. It is almost entirely about messaging. And I still want you to answer, what was the policy that Trump ran on that won it for him? Because to me, it seemed like it was culture war bullshit. It was all messaging. What's the policy of calling your debate opponents wife's ugly? Like everything that Trump does is all messaging, and it works.
Just Drazi, just so you know, your mic is peaking a bit. Like it's just a bit. So you could adjust the gain a little bit. Yeah. Do you want me to actually answer that, Wick, or do you want to
Is
wait?
this better?
Answer his question. Yeah.
It's still peaking. But we'll go on that. Apologies. Could you repeat that?
He asked you what policy Trump won on that ran on that won him the election.
The policy proposals. Hold on, sorry. The policy proposal. We have to really understand what the difference here, right? Like, immigration is a policy proposal, right?
You can just say the answer and then explain it after.
Yeah, start with that first. Give the answer, then explain.
Yeah.
I am explaining. Sorry, I just did. Sorry,
yeah, you're explaining, but not giving the answer.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep talking. So anyway, a policy proposal, right, from a person who's running from for office, right? That will look like the immigration promise, right? That isn't necessarily like we have to understand what's the difference between that and messaging, because it's unclear what you guys mean by that. And I feel like
okay, let me try to bridge the gap just real quick. Let me try to translate for both of you, okay? Because you are missing each other, I think. So what Prime is talking about is how the policies that Trump proposed when he was running is he was going to end the war in Ukraine on day one. That was a policy that he proposed and promised. That was a policy to end the war on day one. He promised to stop immigration. Immigration was just going to be stopped. Illegal immigration, they were all going to be deported. That was a policy proposal. The problem becomes is that his words and his deeds are not matching, right? So the things he's saying aren't actually happening, and people notice that, and that becomes a problem. This, and if I may interject in the discussion, in my opinion, is also the problem that many on the more extreme left has, is they promise things, but then when they get into any kind of power, they don't seem to deliver on those things that they are promised, and it creates dissonance. And we need to, if I were to give my opinion on this subject, I think that the thing that Democrats need to do is to give realistic promises to their constituents, saying, hey, we can't magically make everything better, but we can fix healthcare premiums. They're skyrocketing. We can bring them down, right? We can fix a lot of the issues that you guys are seeing with immigration, where ICE is going crazy, because people don't like that. People don't like ICE right now. Almost no one does. All right, left, center, right? Only the MAGA cultists do. Promise to tone that down. Promise to cut them off, right? To cut their funding.
Wait. You seem to understand. You seem to understand what I was saying better than these two. And I'm not trying to insult you guys. I'm just saying that Wick seems to understand me. And if you can help me,
I think you're misunderstanding my question.
It might be my own problem.
I can clean this up.
Might be. I don't think you can. One second. I don't think you can. But maybe Wick can assist us. So Wick, do you understand when I'm saying I listed 5 things? I don't remember what they all are at this point.
I don't remember what they all are either.
Yeah. But immigration, right? Immigration, candidate Trump, right, wasn't running on an actual policy. He was running on a policy proposal. That's different from messaging, right? Yeah. You talked about the war, right? The war in Ukraine. So a policy proposal is to stop the war in day one, also to stop the genocide on day one too. He said both of those things, right? That's a policy proposal, but the messaging behind that would be, hey, I am the peace president, right? Or his campaign was saying he's the peace president as compared to Joe Biden, right? That's messaging. Do you understand?
I understand.
This is missing the point of why I asked the question.
But let me.
You're trying to explain what you're supposing I'm asking, what the policies that Trump ran on for was. When you give me a straight answer, I can say, okay, now
I gave you
what
shit,
actually
Ed. I gave
happened?
you
What was
5
the
policy
what
proposals.
what? Sure,
The
but what I'm saying
reason
is that you're trying to
Let's
explain.
hold on,
messaging.
please. Schwango, give it a try, and then we got to go to Cory.
Okay, take any milquetoast conservative. Okay, he could say the exact
Those don't exist
same
anymore.
things. He could say the exact same things that Trump said in his campaign. I will end Ukraine day one. I will bring immigration down to zero. No one will believe him. The reason people believed Trump is because of the messaging, because he went around sticking his finger in anyone's eye that was in his way, whether they were his ally or his enemy. So it's the messaging Trump delivers is why people subscribe to the completely vague and innocuous immigration policy. Nobody even he could say, I'm going to solve immigration. Nobody cares. Like, they're like, he said it. But they believe him because of the messaging he's been giving. That's the important part.
I wanna give it to Cory. He's been trying to get in for a while. Cory Campbell, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll try not to derail, but sort of rewinding a little bit. So, Drazi, if I remember correctly, you said something earlier in terms of Biden's first victory was largely like pretty much like it was a vote against Trump. Okay, in 2020, is that like a fair assessment of what you said or the overall message?
Yeah, and we agree. Yeah.
Yeah, to a certain extent. But then my follow-up question is then why did that not hold true in 2024 since the exact same matchup? What do you think happened? And I'm not saying it has to be one thing, but then what do you think happened? And to maybe that point, so I don't actually know for sure, but let's say Prime in 2020, you don't have to say obviously, but like did you support Biden in 2020 and then you no longer support him in 2024? Is that a fair assessment?
Indeed, yes.
So then we have a voter that something changed from 2020 to 2024. And I don't think Prime is necessarily alone. So then what do you think happened in your mind of like your logic was in 2020, it's a vote against Trump. Why did that not hold in 2024?
Well, for starters, the messaging even on the left about Biden was terrible. He was received poorly by basically everybody, even though he did things that were good for the Democrats, even for people further left. But the messaging about him was so consistently bad. Left-wing news coverage on him was bad. People like us, the messaging was bad. There was very little focus on the successes and a lot of focus on the negatives. And then, I mean, towards the end, like what changed? Like towards the end of the campaigning, not only did we switch to another candidate, like last minute, which put a lot of people off. There was a lot of mess with that, and also like his last debate performance. Like even people who were like really for him was like, "Oh no, he's retarded. I can't. Like he's just gone." So like that was, I don't really think you can say like what changed. It's and look at it in terms of like just a political lens. There's a lot of like very real world things that were happening there outside of politics.
But then
that made
I don't necessarily disagree with you. But then are you completely dismissing of like it seems like Prime is an individual case of like something shifted and there was a particular issue that heavily influenced his shift? Do you think Prime is just like one singular case? And like if you look at the data, where if you look at the share of people that turned out in 2020 for Trump versus the people that turned out for Harris / Biden, so to speak, in 2024, like basically there was a drop off in terms of the people that voted for Biden in 2020. Okay, there was a less percentage that voted for Harris in 2024, as opposed to if you look at Trump, the people that voted for Trump in 2020, they turned out again in 2024. So like there's something that has occurred, and it seems like you're dismissing Prime's point of like maybe I'm not saying that that's the only thing, but the Israel Palestine.
Just be clear, Cory. Are you suggesting? Is it your point that you agree with Prime that it was because of the genocide that people stopped?
I'm not saying it's the only thing,
left.
but to dismiss it entirely, I think, is not correct. Especially if you look at Gen Z.
Would you think that the genocide came in the top 5 reasons that Biden lost?
Probably. Well, if we're looking at the margin, because like going back to the point of
it's a simple question. Do you think it's in the top 5?
Probably, yes.
Probably, okay. Why?
What place? Real quick. What place is it? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then what's ahead of it and behind it?
I would probably put it like middle of the pack. somewhere three to 4 or 5.
Okay.
Definitely not 1 or 2. But so to the point that I was attempting to make, maybe unclearly, is like, so Biden had a record turnout. Okay, pretty much most number of votes ever. There's a variety of reasons for that. But then going back to there was a drop off in terms of the people that turned out for Biden in 2020. Not as many people turned out for Harris in 2024. Now, is it a change in candidate? Potentially. Okay, I don't actually know the answer. But if you look at like the Gen Z data and how Gen Z, their stance on Israel Palestine, like there's a percentage there that are clearly they did not turn out in 2024, and I think some of that can be driven. And we have an example here for Prime. He is saying it, and to dismiss it entirely, I don't think would be
Okay. Before we go on, I do have a couple more super chats to read, and I'd like to get them out. $5 from Gelatinous Rube to say, remind Schwango to keep pushing for censorship, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. No, seriously, run on. Redacted boomers, please. I will vote. Well, thank you for the $5, but we're not redacting anyone today. $10 from My Listening Library to say Trump's messaging is failing. He is suing parties for BS, reining in free speech, calling affordability a democratic hoax, taking people off the streets, and giving into Putin at every turn. It takes time. Thank you for the $10. I guess to that point, I guess this might like short circuit the debate, but I think it's worth saying.
Can I answer his question before we move on?
Yeah.
He was asking me a question.
Yeah,
and I would like
go
to
ahead.
answer what
your
changed.
Question. Answer your question. Yes.
So there's two really big factors. I mean, there's 1,000 little factors, but I think the two biggest factors was, one, Trump was coming off of the worst response in the world to the pandemic. That hurt him greatly. And a lot of people felt a sense of urgency because they literally watched people die. And I think that the other thing is the most historic reason for a political shift in the country is we just had this and now we want the opposite. This happens a lot, especially when performances are perceived badly. So we had Trump and things went really bad with COVID. And then we had Biden, especially towards the end of his presidency. That's all people are really going to think about when they're going to the polls next. It was devastating. Towards the end, especially I think that last debate did a ton of heavy lifting.
Yeah, the recency bias
confidence. Yeah, it really crushed us in that. And then Trump was at least familiar, and he not necessarily on the left, but he was popular, and I think that just drew a lot of people in. And also, nobody even knew Kamala. So the way that the Democratic presidency ended going into the next election was terrible, and it's just this typical switching when we have perceived bad presidencies.
I just want to clarify. When you say no one knew Kamala, do you mean like name recognition or just like her policies, or both, or something else?
She had how long to run compared to like every other presidential candidate was like the candidate that was going up for the election, the Democratic Party.
I think it was like 100 days.
Basically almost no time.
So
I think that was a huge part of it.
Like, okay, so when you're saying they didn't know Kamala, as in like they didn't know her policies, or like, are you saying they didn't know that she existed? They didn't know that she was vice president for the past 4 years?
I'm saying that they don't feel like they knew her the way that you would know somebody that you're voting for. They don't have a good idea of who she is and what she stands for.
Well, hold on. Just real quick. Cory, I have been politically active for a while, right? And I would rate my political knowledge and what's happening much higher than the average American, right? Just in the sense of I know what's happening, I know what positions people have. And if you had asked me in 2023, for example, to tell, hey, what's Kamala's positions on things, I would have shrugged my shoulders. I got no idea. I have no clue.
That's what I was trying to clarify, because like maybe I just misunderstood, but he just said people didn't know Harris.
They didn't know what she stood for, or what she was going to do. They knew who she was.
They didn't know her policy.
They didn't know what
was. It was kind of hard to answer because not just the policy, but also people don't know her enough to trust her on her spoken positions either. Like you said, 100 days. That's just not enough to build up the trust to believe anything that she's saying, and not just trying to say the right things at the right time. I think that's how it came off to a lot of people. Well, so I say they don't know her every sense of the word.
Part of her issue was when the first time she tried to run for president, her debate did not go so well. It's like Tulsi Gabbard, as much as I hate her, she just kind of nuked her in that debate. with the, you laugh when you asked if you were smoked marijuana. Meanwhile, you locked up people in California, and put them into slave labor, and then they knew, and then she had a lot of really pro-progressive opinions back then and policy she wanted to run on, and then all of a sudden she moderated super hard. And when she was asked about her moderation, she never gave any good answers about it. And she was famous for having a bad laugh and being the person that went down to the border and told everyone to go away. Like, that's about it. That's about what the main population knew of Kamala. So yes, in that 100 days, people weren't exactly sure what they were voting for. One thing I can say, at least anecdotally in this way, is that every time I point out to conservatives how bad Trump has been for them, they throw up the blue-haired progressive boogeyman as their reasoning why they will tolerate everything, why they will tolerate all the abuses, all the excess. They're like, well, at least it's better than trans people playing basketball against my daughter. And then for them, that's it. That's good enough, right? To bring this back to focus of why progressive messaging is a big problem. And we can't even entertain pursuing progressive policies because the messaging is so bad, even though we want to. There's
so
a lot of
we can't
progressive
do
apologies.
progressive policy because the messaging is so bad. Okay, so again, I'm going to ask you, right? What was the policy? Or sorry, not a policy, because again, there's no policy apparently, right? What was the messaging that scared people off specifically?
Hold on, I'm not going to let you do any bad faith things here. Okay. What I'm saying is there are progressive policies there are just none that have any political traction. Okay. We can address wealth inequality. That's a big problem. Okay. We can address it without even mentioning white privilege. We can address it, even though that's a major part of where it comes from, right? But to say
What?
Let me translate for him. Okay, what Schwango is saying is that you can push for policies that would lower the wealth gap between minorities
without saying white privilege. I got that.
Without targeting specifically white people and making white people feel like they are less than.
I know he's got this faux racial grievance he's like pushing here, but like
I'm talking about elections. This is how you
hold on. Yeah, exactly. So what progressives, right? Well, you're saying, okay, I'm like, this is what's making it so difficult to interact with, right? You're saying there's progressive messaging, right? But it's not coming from progressive to politicians because there are none, right? Or there's so few, right? And they aren't actually putting progressive policy out, right? But they're in the ether, I guess, on Twitter, right? There is someone somewhere is blaming white people for the problems, and that's why we can't actually move forward on any substantive policy. That seems to be what I'm getting here.
I'm saying it's why we haven't.
Yeah, because people on Twitter have said something that might be.
It's in the fucking voting booths.
It's in the voting booths. Okay, we're trying to find out. Okay, we're gonna find out. It's in the voting booths. What is in the voting booths? What's in the voting booths? Right? Are people in the voting booths scrolling on the walls? Right? Blame white. What happened?
Are you intentionally being obtuse, or are you I'm
asking you a question. No, hon, I'm not going to get.
Let me translate again.
No,
hold
on. Hold on. I'm going to finish. I'm not going to let you get away with just like vague bullshit, right? Well, having to make this concrete so that Cory and I can interact with it. I've seen this happen plenty of times before. I see what you're doing. And I keep asking you very reasonable questions, right? About like where is this power, right? That has the Democratic Party by the balls, who paralyzed them from actually putting out policy forward, right? And all you're telling me is there's messaging somewhere by some people who aren't in power, right? And because of them, the Democrats were paralyzed and couldn't do anything. That doesn't exist.
Okay, let me try. Hold on, just real quick. Let me try. So Prime, basically what he's pointing to, and this is just one example, is, for example, it came to be known by the public that in academia, if you were minority, you would have a better chance of getting into a college or getting a scholarship than you would if you were white. And this is something that when Democrats tried to excuse, it was taken up by the right and used as a wedge issue in order to paint Democrats as not caring about or not liking white people. Now, that's true that no academic was a politician, right? That no specific politician was making a I hate whitey as their policy. But because it was in the culture and the Democrats sided or appeared to side with that side, it hurt them electorally. Do you understand now?
Understand the bullshit he was saying. I don't know why you're saying this to me. I understand exactly what he's saying. I'm saying that he is trying to not be specific enough with his language about literally anything. I'm asking very specific. I'm not asking difficult questions here. Not at all, right? I'm saying, like, you're saying that the progressives have been a rot within the party, right? The messaging damages us. Sorry, the Democrats. Excuse me.
That's an example of how the messaging damaged the
Messaging
Democrats.
is as much as what you don't say as what you do say.
Oh yeah, okay,
100%.
yes, and progressives also didn't.
Do you disagree?
Okay, so Biden, not a progressive, right? He's a moderate, was in charge, right? But everything bad that happened in his administration was because of progressives who, according to the other side, don't actually have any power, but still were catered to, right, more than anything else. But then still were upset later on for unknown reasons, right? And then that is the reason why other voters abandoned the party. Not the fact that the economy was starting to go in the wrong direction, right? It was on a downhill. Now it's like, now it's on fire, right? But still, it was starting to go in the wrong direction. Not because Biden promised that he wouldn't run again, but then he decided to do it anyway. Not because the fact that Biden lied continuously to the people, right, to the American people, saying that his faculties were there, right, and his administration covered up for him. None of that had anything to do with it. It was just progressive messaging on Twitter somewhere, right, which is why nothing could happen, and then people decide not to vote. This is the story they're giving you.
My position comes down to a really simple question. Well, I'll start with a fact that we have to win seats in the Senate, we have to win seats in Congress, and we have to win the next presidency to really make things happen. We have to win or nothing gets done. What do you really believe that there are more unrealized progressive voters, or there are more undecided and moderate voters that can be brought in? Like, because I probably want just the same things as you do, but I want to be pragmatic. I want to win so that those things can start to happen.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of people in the middle and people who are undecided on what they're going to vote for want some stability. And progressivism is definitionally not stable. I am fairly progressive. I'm pretty progressive. I've been accused of being uber progressive in Wick's very Discord. However, we need to move. I'm just saying, we need to move the Overton window slowly, unless you think somehow there is more unrealized progressive voters than there is in moderates and undecided people. Because if you think that, I really don't know what I can say to you. And if you don't think that, you have to realize that your position is inherently unwinnable. You can't. Like, why would you?
Okay, just real quick, Drazi, though, just real quick, and yeah. I wanted to say this earlier, and because of my Learning Libraries super chat, but we got distracted. Here's the deal. I think that no matter what we do, we're going to win in 2026. The Democrats are just going to win in 2026 just because Trump's doing it so terribly. Like, I don't think you guys understand how badly the Republicans are doing right now, how everyone is running away from them at full steam because they have demonstrated that they can't govern. The trap here is that because we're pretty much guaranteed to win 2026, we can possibly learn the wrong lessons from the victory coming up. And I want us to start to move in directions that I feel would be more healthy for our party long term. So not only will we win in 2026, but we'll win in 2028, 2030, 2032, and as long as we can. And we can force healthy politics back on the table again. But if what I'm concerned about is because, again, no matter what we do, we're going to win, that people are going to all point to, like, see, it was my policy that made us win in 2026. And
you sound awful 2020 confident,
anything.
Wick.
Hmm?
You're sounding awful confident.
Yes. Because
Or, sorry,
look at the
you're
data.
sounding
Look at
awful
the-
2016 confident. I misspoke.
Oh, sure. But look at the data from 20.
Look at the data we had in 2016.
The data we had in
Nobody-
2016 was not good, but people turned off their brains, right? The data in 2016 pointed to a fundamental weakness in the Democratic Party. And we were coming off of 2 terms, I should say, 8 years of Democratic rule, and people wanted something different. So 2016 is not today. Let's be clear.
Well, and Wick's right. We were in cruise control, basically. We had the economy was looking way better in 2016 than it is now.
I don't think that we get from where we're at right now to Mamdanis and AOCs all over the place. I think that we get there by winning, showing some strength, and slowly moving towards a more progressive America. It just
Mamdani
doesn't
did win though.
Okay,
correct, but I'm saying that's not going to happen everywhere.
$5.
Yeah, no,
He's saying we're not going to get a
What?
title with that.
Sure.
It's
Five-
And
Just
again-
real quick.
Agree with that.
Just real quick,
When I-
$5 from Nick Costanza to say, will voters like Prime even vote in 2026? He seems to care more about Biden's lies than anything happening in the current regime. What's your answer to that,
well,
Prime?
I care about lots of things. I care about the things that are happening now, things happened before, which I won't never forget, right? I'll never forget what the Democratic Party did. But if I'm offered a good option, I'll absolutely vote for it. I really want to, right? And this is why this is why I'm talking about this now, right? Well, one, because I just enjoy being with my friend Wick and Cory here, right? And enjoy talking to new people as well. But anyway, I think
I
it's worth
fucking love
having
you,
these.
Prime.
No,
I have nothing
Okay,
but
you guys
respect
can
for
hug
you.
each other.
No,
whatever, but
yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead,
sorry.
finish, Prime.
I'm just saying.
No hate. But and I think you're all fantastic. I'm enjoying this conversation. But anyway, so just very quickly, yeah, I deeply care about what's happening at this very moment. I talk about and criticize all the things that happen at this very moment. And the reason why I think this conversation is important, right, in this small forum and other much larger forums, is so that we don't repeat the disaster that was the last election. I think it's worth having these conversations. But yeah, go ahead.
I don't think
You wanna go,
anybody.
Cory?
I don't think we.
Or, sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Never mind. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, if you
I just-
No,
go
finish,
Drazi
finish,
first.
Drazi, then go Cory. Drazi,
Yeah.
finish your point, then go Cory. Go ahead.
so even when I said what's the bigger base here, the undecided and moderates or the progressives. Progressives are going to be on the Democrat. Most progressives are going to be on the Democratic side. There will be some holdouts, but we're dealing with a smaller section of progressives, which is why I think that we need to win over moderates and undecided voters, get them on our side so that we can push for the things that we really want. I don't want. You said let's not forget the mistakes of our past. When Biden cut the student debt and did all the forgiveness, there was progressives screeching that it wasn't enough. That was one of the biggest wins I've ever seen for progressive policy ever, and people were furious that he didn't just forgive it all. That's the kind of stuff we need to move away from. We need to celebrate our victories, and we need to appeal to the people that need those victories the most. These are going to be people that are moderate and people that are undecided. Because if you're looking at Trump and you're looking at anybody the left has to offer and you can't decide, that means you're not getting your needs met, period.
Sure. So has anyone actually looked at the numbers?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right. Well then,
I actually have some in front of me. I have notes.
Oh, fantastic! I have notes too.
Just to
All
be
right,
clear,
great.
we're talking about voting numbers, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, we're talking absolutely about
Okay,
voting numbers.
just
Yeah,
making
I know.
sure, because when he said, "Have you looked at the numbers?" I realized Well, I've looked at the voting numbers, but I haven't looked at every single number ever. But go ahead, yeah.
No, yes, not I've. Yes, look, I didn't mean every
It's
single number.
popular vote by 3
Yeah, you
million
know what I mean,
votes
though.
this
Like,
Uh,
well, have you seen the numbers on how many people support guacamole? Like, no, I don't care about that.
The numbers
but-
are important. We have to win
I-
the popular vote by 4 to 5%
Yeah.
just to break even the electoral college. We need as
Understood,
many
yes.
people as possible.
hold on. So even from 2020 to 2024, right? There was a 15% loss by Biden of voters who voted for him previously, but then didn't vote afterwards, right? In Pennsylvania, 518,988 didn't vote for him. But voted from previously, but didn't vote for
yeah,
Kamala
voted in
Harris.
2020, but didn't vote in 2024. Yes. Mhm.
We
Yes,
addressed
indeed,
that. Though.
right. Michigan,
We already talked
Michigan,
about
420. Hun, but you asked me, hey, is there a group of voters that is gettable, that we can tap into, right, on the left, right? Or
So what's the bigger group?
I think the bigger group is on the left. So I think that there is a massive amount of people who don't feel heard, who are untapped, right, and then who can be activated by the proper policies, right. And we see this literally just now within the Mamdani election, right. Like both in the primary and in the general, there was a massive increase in voter participation, right? People who hadn't been participating, at least in those elections, right, on the local level, who had been participating previously, but they were energized to do so in that moment, right? That's because of policy proposals that they found appealing, right? Now you can argue whether they were good proposals or bad proposals. We can talk about that later,
Sure.
right? But there were policy proposals that people found appealing. That's just one example of exactly that happening. These people can be energized. They have been, right? And some of them voted previously, but just didn't vote when they weren't energized, when they didn't have people speaking to them. There are numbers to prove these
Yeah,
things. Sorry, go
the
ahead.
problem though with looking
It's a
at
city
the,
election.
if I may, the problem with looking at the Mamdani election is that he was running against two of the worst fucking candidates that, well, for the best candidates you could ever run against, Grandma Killer Cuomo, and I'm actually in bed with Trump. What
Harris
was the other
was running
guy?
against Trump, right?
Yeah.
Harris was running against a person who
Hold on, but let me finish.
incited a riot at the Capitol.
Sure, let
right?
me finish my point, though.
Is a convicted criminal. I mean, I don't know, but like he's not much different, right? Trump was a bad candidate. Harris, right, for all her awful faults, right, she could have won this election. It was possible. I really have the numbers in front of me because I know other people haven't actually done the calculation. But like, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, but I'll finish my point about Mamdani, then address
Sorry,
the larger point about numbers. So the point about Mamdani is it was a mayoral race in a very deep blue city. These are going to have different needs and different desires than rural Pennsylvania or just Pennsylvania on a state level, right? For example, like as a good example, what will win in New York City is going to lose in Pennsylvania. So we can't take Mamdani's win, which was a localized win, and extrapolate too much on that.
Any candidacy, right, at least on the presidential level, right, you have to tailor your messaging to the different swing states because unfortunately with our awful system we have
That's the system we live. If we lived in a different system, I might have your opinion, but we don't, and we live in an electoral system.
I'm not saying anything radical here. You have to tailor a message, right, to the states that matter. I'm saying what you just said.
Yes.
So I'm saying that I'm not saying that run on whatever necessarily like one in New York, right?
I understand.
You go to,
but I can.
So you don't seem to understand because then why do you say?
I understand because that's not the part I disagree with you on. The part I disagree with you on is that, for example, you say that there was about 600,000, 500,000 in Pennsylvania that stayed home that voted in 2020. and you posit that that's because he didn't energize people from the left enough, and that's why they didn't stay home. And I know for Pennsylvania specifically, because I lived there, that's not why they stayed home. A lot of people, first of all, turnout was down across the board from 2024. Because
that's what I just said.
One, we weren't in a pandemic, and so it wasn't as easy to vote, right? Because remember, in 2020, it was much easier to vote. We made special allowances for people to vote from home, to vote by mail.
Many of those
all these
policies
things
are still in place. What voting?
Not in. Hold on. There's been a lot of legal challenges in Pennsylvania for that.
Yeah, they had those legal challenges, but for the most part, okay, well, it doesn't matter.
But I'm talking about Pennsylvania.
You're saying,
but I'm also saying the people who stayed home in 2024 stayed home because they feel that Biden. Well, first of all, a lot of my inner circle stayed home because Biden wasn't on the ticket anymore. He was pushed out, and they did not like that because Pennsylvanians love Biden, right? Scranton. He's a Scranton kid, right? And then the second thing is a lot of people felt that he failed on the economy, right? A lot of people felt that the economy was just poor. And let's look in worldwide, incumbencies lost because of the COVID inflation. Now, you can argue whether that's fair or not, but to act as if they didn't show up because of Biden wasn't progressive enough and didn't do enough in Israel-Palestine, it just doesn't bear out.
Once again, I've actually looked at these numbers. No one else here has.
Well,
right?
Yes, I have. What did I say that wasn't right with the numbers?
Okay, hold on. What's the difference? Okay, well then you can tell me. You looked at the numbers. You can tell me, right?
Sure.
Right. What is the percentage of people who said that they were more likely or less likely to vote for Biden based or Biden Harris, right? Based on his positions on Palestine.
In statewide or nationwide?
Statewide.
Statewide, I don't know the specific states.
Nationwide.
I don't know the specific states.
As a nationwide, sorry.
Oh, as a nationwide. It was, I'm not sure off the top of my head. What was it? Tell us.
So by more than by more than 3-1 margin, Biden 2020 voters who did not vote for Harris say they would have been more likely to have voted for Harris if she, quote unquote, pledged to break from President Biden's policy toward Gaza by promising to withhold additional weapons to Israel, rather than less likely. So more likely to vote for him, 36%. Less likely, 10%. Makes no difference, 54%. Right? You can apply these numbers, and I have polling. I have sources for everything.
I understand. So a majority said it made no difference.
Yes, that's true, right?
What I'm saying is a majority would say.
1 second, because you don't understand what I'm saying here. Because then you can apply these numbers to the vote differences, right? So you can apply them to how many people didn't vote, right, or who switched. Right, you can do that to those numbers, and you can see how many people could have possibly been won over. Right, from the people who decided to stay home, how many of those people could have potentially been brought over? And then when you do that, right, you can see that there is a greater difference, at least in 3 states, right? Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, right? There's 3 states in which the gettable voters, right, being individuals who were turned off by the Israeli policy, right, versus the state vote difference in terms of the loss margin here, right? There was more people in those 3 states who could have been who could have been persuaded to go to the polls, right? Pennsylvania, there would have been 106,012 voters. Michigan, 80,103 voters. Wisconsin, 89,981 voters, right? If you apply these numbers, right, of what voters have said, their positions are
what they said, more or less likely or less likely. Your own poll betrays what you're trying to say. This isn't saying hard not going to, hard going to. It's more likely or less likely. This isn't like a concrete thing anyways. And you're acting like
can never polling is never concrete. That's all. That's all.
Sure, but we're also looking at the language of what the poll was. Isn't I would or wouldn't. Now then I would be more willing to listen to what you had to say there. Or if the poll was afterwards, why didn't you?
Drazi, I don't care if you're willing to listen to what I have to say, right? I'm actually
I am listening. That's why I have an issue with what you're saying.
Okay, so then you are listening. Fantastic, great. So then if you are listening, then you can understand that I've actually done these calculations. I've actually looked at the numbers. So everyone here, right? Unless you can
Hold on,
show
how
me
much?
otherwise,
Hold on,
right?
how
You're
much
not even
would?
addressing my
Hold on,
issue.
1 second. No. Because like from the start, right? I was challenged on this from the very start, and we've been going around on this issue. Hey, would this have made a difference if there were Harris had changed her policy stance, right? Would that have made a difference, right?
How many who did vote for her would not have voted for her if she changed her policy?
1 second. Less likely, 10%. So
No. Those were a poll.
1 second.
That was a poll of
Hold
people
on.
who didn't vote. I'm talking about the people who voted. The people
1
who
second, hold on, 1
voted,
second.
how many of them wouldn't show up?
1 second, Wick. I will address your concerns, right? I'm
Okay.
going to finish my statement, right? So, Drazi, Schwango, excuse me, and Wick, right? They're saying this is impossible. It's silly, Prime. Where are you coming up with this? This is just fantasy. Well, they actually have never looked at these numbers, right? They've never actually looked. Hey, would this have made a difference? There is polling out there talking about exactly this, right? This is after election talking these individuals. What informed your choices, right? But and you can apply these numbers to the actual historical data. You can do that. They've never done that. They have no data on their site. Not one shred of data. None of it. So I'm going to ask them. Maybe I'm wrong. What data do you have that says otherwise?
We can look at the national average of who supports Israel and who doesn't. How many people support Israel versus how many people don't nationally? Do you know?
That's not important. Hold on.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because the point is, like that poll that you just cited only polled people who did not vote. And I'm talking about the people who would have gone out. And if Kamala had
the most likely
betrayed
voters.
Israel, they would have stayed home. You would have lost more than you gained.
Hold on. Wick. Think about it, Wick, right? The what you just talked about is a generalized poll of the nation and where they stand, right? Okay? I'm talking about the most likely voters. When polling agencies,
They're not the most likely voters. They didn't vote.
Yeah, they didn't
polling
vote.
agencies do polling,
They
right?
weren't likely voters.
Who are the most likely voters? Are the voters who voted in the last election, correct? Hold on.
No, it's the voters who vote every election, not just one.
No.
So the people
who
voted the
in the
midterm.
last election. It can't be every election, right?
Because can you stop pretending like the last election was normal by any stance?
If you had a voter who voted when they were 20 years old, then they couldn't have voted in the previous election beforehand, right? But they're a likely voter because they're forming that habit right there. A likely voter is a voter. They ask you, did you vote in the last election? I've actually been polled by polling agencies. They ask you, hey, did you vote in the last election? And that's how they determine that. So the most likely voters are the voters that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the specific voters, previous Democratic voters, not anyone, not just anyone, the ones who voted for Biden. These are the reasons why they didn't vote this time.
There are so many factors that went into the 2020.
Sure. Give me
election.
numbers. Don't tell me about factors. Give me numbers.
I am saying that it is one of the most unreliable elections to look at.
There's no data, meaning you have no data.
Can you
No, he's saying your data is bad.
More factors? Can you give me any election that had more circumstances surrounding it?
Give me any data. Can you give me any data?
Can
you give me any data? That's what I'm asking you. I've given you
your data was they asked some people who didn't vote, would they be more or less likely? And then you're trying to turn it into raw numbers.
Why were you turned off? So again, where is your data?
So can I ask a question that actually elaborates on
Well, let me get some super chats in.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not going to get in the way of your money.
You're fine. $5 from My Listening Library. Primecayes. What does a good option mean? What are the requirements? And then before you answer that, $5 from Nick Costanza. Can we hear how Democrats can win in 2026 instead of yet another list of grievances about what they did wrong previously? Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't know what. They asked me what's a good option.
What are the requirements for a good option for you to vote in 2026?
Oh, I see. Good policy proposals, right? That would be an industrial plan. Here's a good one. An industrial plan that's actually workable, right? Here, I'll give Biden a compliment here, right? I'll give Genocide Joe Biden a compliment, that he was trying, I guess it was in 2023. I don't know. But he was trying to put forth a workable industrial policy, right? In terms of like the CHIPS Act, right? He was trying to put investment into like bringing chip manufacturing home to America, and it was actually working, right? In terms of was moving. It was like investing in Intel and others, right? Trying to move manufacturing here. It's going to be a slow process, right? Trump has destroyed that with his tariff policies, right? And so, someone with a good industrial policy, that would be great. Yeah, just one example.
I can ask just a question that goes back to the previous conversation. So, Prime has done an analysis and, is making the case that the Israel-Palestine was a factor, like sort of a bare minimum. And you can dismiss it. You could say like totally irrelevant. It's bad data, all that stuff. But then I'm curious to know going back to, I think, either in the opening statement or early in the conversation of then Schwango, I believe, mentioned like explicitly like, well, this aspect of DEI and all that stuff, that was a huge factor as to why the left has lost.
The messaging of DEI, not DEI itself.
Sure,
I can actually get an intelligent. I've been able to talk conservatives into understanding why DEI.
I'll even take the message, your messaging of DEI. Okay, so if that is true, then I'm curious. Like, is Drazi going to dismiss your point? Because, like, do you have any data to back that up? Of like, how do you know that it was the messaging of DEI that either pretty much resulted in the right winning, or like resulted in the left losing? Because like,
Trump ran on it. Trump ran on anti-DEI.
Yeah, and you could also say that, like that just, I would say, bolsters Prime's point of like Harris was not strong enough in terms of their position in Israel-Palestine.
Okay,
so like,
Cory,
how do you know then
sure.
in terms of like, because like you can dismiss Schwango's point, but if you're dismissing Prime's point, you have to dismiss Schwango's point as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough, Cory, but we can look at other data. For example, the 2025 November election, and we can look at the performance levels between candidates who were more moderate and candidates who were less moderate and see the differences in how they performed. And we can see that the candidates that were more moderate won by higher percentage points, and sometimes double-digit higher percentage points, than the candidates who were more progressive or much more extreme or considered more extreme. We can look at the special election performances in Tennessee, for example, where a very progressive candidate ran and she lost, and she outperformed Trump 2024 by a good amount, right? But she still lost. Whereas we could see special elections of the more moderate candidates, and we can see they outperformed and they actually won. And so, at least when it comes to what sort of candidate that we are going to run in 2026 and 2028, the data, the most recent data we have, suggests it's the more moderate candidates that tend to outperform. Now, again, even the progressives won because we're in like a Dem plus 12 environment, right? But let's just give an example. Mamdani won by a lot less than the governor of New Jersey did, and the governor of Virginia did, and the lieutenant governor of Virginia did. And we could just compare these things. Now, they're not entirely apples to apples because one was a primary and one was a more kind of localized thing. But we can, again, as the data rolls in, we can begin to see patterns emerge. And at least in the environment we're in now, it seems to be that moderates do better.
Okay. We have to go case by case, but I'm not even sure that Prime is necessarily, well, I would disagree with all those people that, I'm not going to speak for them, but like, I don't know that Prime has an issue with all those candidates winning that you just mentioned, per se.
We haven't even talked about the people that are put off from Trump who want to come back to a sense of normalcy. We can't shock and scare them with a bunch of super progressive policies.
What are these policies that shock and scare people?
Yeah, because that would be my follow-up question. It's like, are you saying shock based off of what policy or what messaging? Either or, I don't even care at this point.
give me your progressive policies. I'm saying that a lot of the
You're
people
saying
that
there's
are
something that's going to shock and
disenfranchised
scare.
with
I don't know
Trump-
what's going to shock and scare. So you tell me what are progressives proposing that's going to shock and scare people?
How about you put some onus on yourself? Tell us what you imagine.
No, hold on. You're making the claim that there are policies that are so dangerous, right, to the American electorate that they're complete
You say
poison, right?
dangerous.
You're saying they definitely exist, right? But still, I keep asking you basic questions. Hey, what are the policies? What is actually doing it, right? And nothing. The best you say is white guilt. That's the best you got. Like, come
Holy
on,
shit.
do
Just
better.
like, all right,
I'm
hold
asking
on,
you,
hold on.
please.
You need a timeout. Maybe a nap. Okay, you're acting like someone's taking your toys away from you.
Hey, don't be condescending to me, right? Because I've been taking you seriously. Clearly, maybe I shouldn't have been,
I'm
right?
trying
I've been
to
trying to
take you,
take you
but no,
seriously and
you're
asking
taking
you very
your
specific questions, right, about your positions. You've been unable to answer, right? So don't try to make yourself look better, but being a condescending prick here. So once again, I'll ask you, and since we're going to be condescending like a baby, okay, little Schwango, right? What are the policies that people are putting forward, right, that are so scary? Please tell me. Go ahead.
Sorry, that was cute. Anyway, real quick, I'll address real quick. But Drazi, go ahead, finish your point, and then I'll get back to
Well, you should
old
probably come up
Primecayes.
with something desperately. Go ahead, please.
All I was trying to say is that I think that the people that are disenfranchised from Trump that voted for Trump are willing to vote against the MAGA movement at this point. And if we offer something more comfortable than further than more extreme, we're going to have a lot greater success with those people as well. We're going to be targeting moderates, we're going to be targeting undecided, and we'll be targeting former Trump supporters as well. This is a very large voting pool that we can pull from if
we actually have data
are
on this.
measured.
We actually, because that was part of Kamala's plan, right? Kamala's plan
Didn't involve what we're in right now. And I'm talking about the disenfranchised Trump voters
sure.
that exist
The best
right
we can
now.
do, of course, the best we can do is rely on Trump's failure and hope that things don't turn around. Hope that there
That's not what I said. I listed
hope that nothing.
two-thirds of the voters I talked about were
I'm
not
trying to
that.
give you an actual, again, because I can come up with concrete examples of things to work off of, right? Not just my imagination, like the both of you. So, right, we can look at what Kamala Harris's campaign plan was, right? And part of it, a very famous part of it, right, was her campaign to Republican women. Right? She said this is a gettable group of voters, right? Who you're not voting because Trump is so objectionable, right? Again, Trump is so big, bad, and scary. The Democrats' plan, right? He's so big, bad, and scary that people aren't going to like him. They're going to find him objectionable. He's disgusting, right? So she made specific appeals, commercials. We can still find them on YouTube, right? To Republican women that says, "Hey, don't worry, your vote is secret, so you can vote for me, Harris, right, instead of Trump." That did not work. That was a complete failure, right?
I'm talking about people who are currently dissatisfied with Trump.
She made specific overtures to conservatives, right? Well, one way of doing that, right, of those disaffected Trump voters, she went and bear hugged fucking Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, talking about how amazing they were. This was her camp. This was her tacking to the center, right?
It's still super bad faith in response to what I said.
She said, a bad faith, talking about actual campaign strategies that were used previously. Bad faith when talking about, hey,
I'm talking about the current economic climate. When I said we can pull from disenfranchised Trump voters that we can all see right now that did not exist then, in addition to the moderates and the people on the left that are dissatisfied with progressive policy.
Bad. You have to rely on Trump being bad.
I have to rely on the reality that exists right now. These people can go and vote for another Republican and hope that they're not going to follow the MAGA path.
So rather than vote for the Republican, they'll vote for Republican light, right? We'll position ourselves as Republican light, and then that'll attract Republicans. That'll work. Right? Rather than actually putting forth a forward position. I'm not even talking about a progressive position, right? I'm talking about a forward, position yourself, right? Saying, hey, this is what I'll do, right? Like, even then from these individuals, well, they're not putting forth anything. They're just saying that progressive policies are bad. We don't know what they are, right? Some sort of messaging or whatever, right? Or maybe progressive policy doesn't exist, right? Whatever it is out there, it's bad and it's scary, right? And then the only way to win, right, is not actually for the Democrats, the moderates, to have anything more solid. Is to say that Trump equal bad, right? Like he was bad all those other times. Trump equal bad, and so Republicans vote for us. The cult, vote for us. We have a fake Republican that you'll like better. That's their plan.
I think that's very disingenuous.
Yeah, I think very much so.
And everything you said was so hyperbolic too.
Okay,
was it hyperbolic when I described Harris's campaign? Was that hyperbolic, or was that truthful?
No, it was not.
Was that truthful? Was it truthful what I described about Harris's campaign?
Yeah, you went off on the side and talked about something that wasn't relevant to what I said.
That was correct. Hold on. When we're talking about like attracting Republican voters, right? It's incorrect to talk about the last
I was pretty specific about which ones,
voters, right? Yeah, I know. Yeah. You're talking about imaginary ones, right? You're talking about imaginary ones.
No.
Or, sorry, an imaginary result. Now, right? Like in the future, maybe, right? So I'm like, okay, why don't we temper our?
I'm talking about the very real people that are very vocal about their dissatisfaction for having voted for Trump.
Yeah, sure, okay.
That doesn't exist, right?
And once again, I'm talking about actual polling performance. I'm talking about historical performance we can look at, right? I'm actually talking about something in the past that we can anchor our conversation with. But you don't want to do that because it looks awful for you.
The problem
looks awful for you.
Yeah, the problem, Prime, is that you're pointing to an election that was, by all intents and purposes, very different than other elections because of the the circumstances surrounding it. We again, 3 months before the election, they pushed our candidate out, and they got someone else.
Our candidate, Biden. Hold on, once again, because
he got pushed out. Yes,
Wiccan liberals are in a politician protection racket, right? So
the guy I voted for the primary, I want him to be in the contestant. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Well, the one who lied about we didn't have a primary in 2024, right?
I voted in it. Yes, we did.
Why? We didn't.
Hold on.
No,
people cast votes.
You think that was a primary? Okay, all right, okay. So now we're.
Hold on. Did people not cast votes in the 2024 primary? I did.
Well, there was no candidates like a robust.
You can vote. There was. He had opponents he ran against.
Debates. Where were the debates?
He didn't have debates, but Trump didn't debate either.
Hold on. Yes.
Hold on. Trump didn't debate either.
Oh my God! Okay, yes, there were physical voting because we had that all the time. There was physical voting, but for who? For what? There was no policy discussion. There was no argument from the party as to what direction we should go in. That's the primary that we didn't do.
Hold on, Kamala.
Wick, we had a debate. You and me.
We did.
You and me, Wick. Right? We had a debate, and I think Destiny was there. IRI was there, I believe, as well. About, hey, should we have a primary? You said no. I said yes.
Should we have a primary debate? I don't think we should have had debates. Now, to me, again, I think that Biden should not have run for a second term. I don't think he should have. However, he did, and he won the primary, right? And then pushing him out after the fact just played in to the Republicans' narrative in a way that we should not have done. But regardless, whether or not, hold on, whether or not we think we should have, whether or not we think we should have, do you acknowledge that it made it a unique case? Because you guys can't
even acknowledge the problems that happened beforehand. I keep saying, hey, let's talk about the 2024 election, right? Because it's our most recent data. Once again,
no, it's not the most recent data. The most recent data we have was 2025 November 4th.
2025.
2025,
okay,
yes.
Right, so we inaugurated Mamdani. Okay, great.
Well, we had a whole host of national elections in 2025 on November 4th, and we can pull from that. We had elections in Pennsylvania. We had elections in Georgia. We had elections in New Jersey. We had elections in Virginia.
We're talking about a presidential election, and I'm talking about a presidential election.
Okay, I'm talking about a national election because we're talking about 2026.
You guys refused to diagnose what the problem was in the last presidential election. You refused to do it, right? So I'm saying, hey, what was the problem here? Was Biden a problem? I'm trying to get you to even admit that. And you can't.
There was a host of problems. One of the major ones.
And was one of them Biden?
Yes.
Great, thank you. That's all I wanted.
Okay.
Get the fight.
However,
Great.
however, we have data, recent data about a national election, state, local elections, and things like that, and we can look at it and we can extrapolate on it going into 2026. We now live in a different environment than we did in 2024. People forgot just how bad Trump was. They're remembering. And we can look at, okay, how can we have a solid winning coalition, not just for 2026, but going forward? I guess, other than Israel-Palestine, what progressive policy would you like to see Democrats take up and champion that they currently are not?
Do you want to handle this first, Cory, or?
Well, actually, I would just go back to my opening statement of like, the $15 minimum wage, which I think Biden one of the
Okay, so
ran on that.
$15 minimum wage. What else?
Stricter gun control. I think we all pretty much like agree. I'm
Stricter
pretty
gun control. I don't actually. Do you think that's a winning?
Not sure.
That's a
well, based off of
winning,
based on the data that I've seen, a majority, not an overwhelming majority, but I think it's like in the realm of 55.
I don't know
60%.
enough about this the statistics. I don't. So I
understand it being
comment on
ambiguous in terms of like what exactly does stricter gun control mean,
Yeah.
but about 55 to 65%.
Okay, gun control. Okay, so $15 gun control.
And well, that this might be the more extreme of like the public healthcare or government being in charge of healthcare.
Okay, so
again,
a public option
like-
for healthcare, correct?
Yeah, a slight
Okay,
majority
so
of
those are
Americans,
three.
based off of the
Do
data
you-
that I've seen, support
Sure.
that.
Do you agree with
What
those?
do you feel, Cory? What do you feel about UBI as
Uh,
a
I haven't seen really solid data that's I go back and forth in terms of like. So far, I lean towards it being a good thing, especially in the realm of like potentially AI and some changes in the pipeline. Maybe
I guess what I mean is I think we all agree it's inevitable within 15 years. Does that seem like a safe?
I don't
or
think
some
UBI is
UBI?
inevitable. I don't
Inevitable?
think it's inevitable.
I don't think
no.
any policy is inevitable.
Oh well, I just mean with the state of AI exponentially growing.
Yeah, I don't think.
in
I
that-
think AI is a bubble. I think it's gonna pop.
You think?
Yeah, I
it's
think.
not
I
gonna
think
automate out
they're not
most?
actually getting returns on it like that they want, and I think it's going to be a cool toy, but I don't think it's going to fulfill all the
That's
things
what
that a
I'm
lot of people worry.
The
that it's
novelty
going to do.
wears off when people are
If
done.
it's not a
asking-
bubble, it's the most important issue of the next election.
That's where I'm coming from. I don't think it's a bubble.
100%.
I
If
don't-
it's not, it is all
Or if
that's
even
going to
it is
matter
a bubble.
coming up in the next
If
election.
it's a bubble or it's not a bubble, I think it's still one of the most important issues for the next election. I'd agree there.
Well, do you think
It's,
just real quick, just to all of you then, because maybe I disagree with all of you. Do you think that AI issues are going to be something that people will be voting on when it comes to 2026, 2028?
Absolutely. We can see that. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see that
I think-
going
I think
from your
either-
local results. Sorry, go ahead.
I think either directly or indirectly, as in like people factoring like effect on the economy.
Yeah.
The perception of
with the-
AI will matter a lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
the like for instance, just like a practical policy, right? But talking about the electricity bills, right? Whether it's even true in your area or not, people have in their heads that AI is raising electricity prices, right? So for any sort of raise they see in the bump and that, they're like, this is AI, right? And if someone gives them a platform saying, I'm going to regulate that away, right, and get your electricity bills down, right? That's a winning platform.
Yeah, I literally watch AI news every single day, and I see polling in the AI news about how much people care about it. It is a massive issue that
It's a
is
big
not
issue.
discussed in mainstream politics nearly enough because it is extremely important to mainstream Americans now, and especially because
So what
a lot of
AI
people don't
policy do you
understand
think the
it. It
Well,
matters a
this
lot
is good.
to
No,
them.
this is good. This is good. Maybe you guys can convince me. What AI policy do you think that Democrats should run on in 2026 and 28? What should their stance be? What would you like to see the Democrats put forward as policy proposals with regard to AI?
Well, the first place to start with that is what are the issues? I heard something the other day there was a rise.
No, don't start
in
with it.
that.
Please just give me the policies, then we can start about issues.
I'm
Yeah.
speaking to the policy based off the problem.
Okay.
The policy has to come from where the problem originates. So, for example, there's a something I heard about how they're putting in other people's faces and then making like porn or something.
Deep
There's
fake
that-
porn,
there's
yes.
that-
Or do you
Yes.
think porn, yeah.
So how do you like? Do we need to clamp down on?
Is that going to be a salient issue going forward in 2026 that you think that is going to win us an election?
I think it has potential to run off the rails really
I think the
fast.
thing that's going to politically impact the AI conversation is how are we going to approach getting some of the massive amounts of wealth that are being generated by the AI industry and offsetting the negatives from it. So, for example, Prime talked about electricity costs, also environmental impact is going to be very big. And how can we, and it's not a very easy to solve issue either, but how can we take some of the revenue that's being generated by AI and using it to help reduce the economic impact, help put it back into lowering energy costs. Things like that are going to be a very big issue. And also where they're building the data centers in these local areas, I think that those issues are going to expand far beyond the local areas.
Yeah, I just did a quick search, and so maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe this search is incorrect.
I mean, you asked AI,
right?
Yeah. Gemini, please answer this.
OpenAI is operating at a loss. Anthropic is operating at a loss. NVIDIA is operating at a loss. All these companies are operating at losses. So when you say massive profits, they're not making any. They're operating at losses.
I would agree with you.
They're
Not
for like
making massive
decades,
profits.
I believe.
NVIDIA is making money, or at the very least, it's like raising its stock prices, which are not necessarily
the biggest company in the world.
But like, but I'm saying that like, stock prices and profits don't necessarily go hand in hand. I mean, look at the.
I might be reading these wrong.
But I'm agreeing with you, Wick. Right? That like, they're not making massive profits, right? Like OpenAI is just losing money. It's burning money. But not. OpenAI is different from like Google, right? Because Google has a solid business behind it, and it can afford to burn money that OpenAI can't. So it's actually a very nuanced look at the landscape that you have to engage in. But
it's even more with Google with that too. Google can't fail.
Yeah, it's unlikely that Google will fail necessarily, but that doesn't mean the venture will be successful. But it's unlikely the like Google, the company, will fail.
But wait,
they make their own chips and everything.
Okay, I'm still waiting for the policy we should run on, though. Like,
okay, well, it doesn't matter if it's a bubble or not. The fact is, the money is still being funneled in right now. The data centers are being built. They're going to have massive.
What are the policies that Democrats should run on regarding AI?
Increased carbon tax.
Increased carbon tax. What else?
Assuring that again, what we've been talking about, ensuring that the increase in electricity usage, right, that isn't passed on to the rest of the community, right? That the companies are paying for that, because now they're just using up more electricity, and it's raising the prices for communities around them, right? But hey, like, you have to actually absorb all that cost, right? Like, the community doesn't have to take that on, especially if they're not getting any supposed profits from your venture. That's one thing, right? Then it's about like zoning. Where are we going to put these things, right? Because it's another part is water usage. The water usage is actually a lot more complicated than people think it is, but still, right? Like ensuring that there is proper water usage, because we were afraid, especially in arid places where they're putting a lot of data centers, that like their water is going to be used up, and then of course their water bills are going to rise, right? These are actually things that they're dinner table issues. Address those things, right? Starting there, right? And AI safety, or what that looks like, because people are concerned about that as well. I think that's a winning policy proposal. So you go.
Okay, fair enough.
I agree.
I worry. And maybe I'm wrong on this. I very well could be. I worry that AI issues in general aren't going to be a salient feature of our upcoming elections. I could be wrong, but I don't think. I think that the closest.
I'll send you some stuff.
Wait.
I'll just. Can I finish my point? The closest that it will come is to be rolled in onto a larger policy of dinner table issues, right? As I think Prime was alluding to, right? Electricity bills and things like that. Like, I think that as a part of a larger message on, hey, you guys are struggling financially, you're struggling to make ends meet, you're struggling to have opportunity, you got all these costs rising, your wages aren't keeping up, how can we fix this? How can we help you? How can we help you be able to adjust, and how can we bring back jobs to America? I think as a larger messaging thing, fair, right? But I just don't think that it's going to be a very salient issue in 2026.
Well, I don't think anybody disagrees in terms of like they actually have it in their mind of like AI #1 priority or whatever, top 3. But pretty much, I think as mentioned earlier, like either directly or indirectly is going to be in people's mind of like pretty much like rolled into like economic issues. I think it's fair to say no matter what, AI is having an effect on the economy, either positive or negative in the short run or in the long run. And so it'll be factored in no matter what, whether people know it or not, type of thing.
I just gotta say,
let
I
me ask
think that
you
it's
real
very
quick.
easy to say it's a bubble and to say that it's not going to be that important now. But if you follow the progress, like I do, like literally every single day, it's. I think from an average user perspective, things aren't happening very fast, but it is insane how much continuous progress there has been. In 2026, it's going to be a whole nother ball game, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be literally the #1 issue in 2026. I can't imagine it not being.
That's a
And I know
bold
that
claim.
if you're not plugged in, it's probably hard to understand that. But like, especially in the politics space, we should really be looking more at what's going on there because I can't imagine a world where it's not the #1 issue.
It energizes like actual grassroots action in a way that we haven't been seeing like in a while. Not
Oh
since like the
yeah,
book ban, right? Like when people find out there's an AI data center coming near them, right? People are not just like getting upset, right? They're not just like tweeting. No, they're like organizing together. They're like pushing, they're going to their local politicians, making demands, right? And like showing up at town halls, right? They're taking actions on the street. It is a motivating factor. So I'm gonna have to agree with Drazi there. But can we like
ask
move
any
back to like
artist.
yeah. Oh well, there's that too. But like yeah, can we move back to like the original topic? Like in terms of overall. So I mean, I think AI will come up with the next. To be clear, I don't think it was a complete tangent because AI, like Drazi was saying, I
Well,
think it will be
that's what I'm
important for our
asking is
next
like, what
election.
policies should Democrats be running on in 2026? And AI was brought up, and
Well,
so it
that's my only
perfectly.
problem with that is that like I'm not sure if there's and I've been trying to conceive of this. I'm not sure if there's a specific liberal progressive split on this, right? The only thing I can think of is maybe like and these sound these are opposite policies, but the left could probably get behind both of these, right? Either one, complete disinvesting in terms of like money going into these, right? Like government money going into these companies, or the opposite, right? Like taking voting control of these companies, right? If we're putting money into them, if the U.S. is investing money into them, then getting an equity stake and actually like having a decision making role in the company. So that's the best I can think of. But I don't know if there's a left like liberal left split in that one. So
I liked your first
Well, there's. I think that we need to tax the spending because if it is a bubble, then at least we're getting something out of it for sure. And also building a coalition with other countries, I think, is a lot more left leaning than it is conservative. Because the global politics are being affected a lot by like chip manufacturing, how who's farthest ahead in the race right now. There's a whole lot of policy we can have. Foreign policy we can do that would be, I think, democratic, but also getting widespread support. But taxing the spending on it to help offset the economic and environmental impacts of it, I think, is super super important. Especially when, like, this year, you're going to see a lot of loss of jobs. It's going to be, and that's going to be the reason why it's
Due
the
to
#1 issue.
AI specifically?
Absolutely. I know
Really?
people
Okay.
that literally automate work for large companies. They sell like AI API to companies to offset workers already. It's already happening. In the next year or 2 years, it's going to be happening a lot more. AI doesn't have to get a lot better. We just have to get a lot better at utilizing it for that to happen. And that's guaranteed to happen. And so figuring out how we're going to handle all these misplaced workers now that really don't have another avenue to move to is going to be very, very, very important. And I think that that is such an inherently democratic position, a winning democratic position to have. And I really don't think conservatives are going to have anything to say about it other than they're just going to have to go with what Democrats want because nobody's going to vote for them if they're not trying to help them after they lost their job to AI. We have a chance to be like the
and I
heroes of
think
that fight.
and I think specifically what you were just talking about were Republican politicians because in terms of the conservative base, like I don't think this is looked as a partisan issue in terms of the base, like on both bases as other issues, right? You have conservatives, right, joining liberals in those town halls. They all are afraid of this. So I think Trump is trying to make this into like one of his like policy platforms, right, saying that we aren't allowed to regulate AI, but on the ground, this hasn't sunk in as like a tribal thing yet, and so there's a lot of overlap. I think again, across the political spectrum.
So how can we make it a tribal thing? How can we make it so Democrats own
and point
this
at the Republicans
issue?
having caused it? We're the winners.
We say Hamas is behind AI, right? We say Hamas is behind the AI.
Hold on, you laugh at me, guys, but look, making things into a tribal issue can be extremely.
No, I'm not sorry. I'm not. No, sorry. I wasn't
I
asking you.
I think the white guilt in DEI is a good example of that forces the tribalism. Like, it's not an actual thing.
What Prime just said is true.
Yeah.
If we just say Trump's involvement with AI has been all about not regulating it, when we see the effects of the lack of regulation, that's a conservative position. And the Democrats' positions, broadly speaking, are so good for tackling the problems that AI is going to bring with all of it, the economics in terms of the industry itself, displaced workers, the environment. Democrats are already on that side. We don't have to change anything. We just have to address it and show how they let it happen.
Fair enough. $5 for my listening library to say, at Wick, just look at the current layoffs in the gaming world. Mass layoffs, and the companies are just saying that AI does the job. So fair enough. I see a lot of layoffs overall from the tariffs. So maybe that's just kind of dwarfing it right now. But I'll look
how
into
how are you pinpointing the actual cause of the layoffs? Because to me, that's pretty muddy. I might be ignorant, but that's pretty muddy issue in terms of like layoffs.
But to Wick's point, no, I'm going to back Wick up here on this point specifically. There was layoffs in the tech sector in general and the gaming sector in particular long before the big AI boom, right? Like there was like the overhiring during the pandemic because they thought like profits were exploding at the time, and so companies were like, oh, the good times are going to be here forever. It's just this is the graph, right, for our profits permanently.
Line goes up,
wrong,
yeah.
right? And yeah, the line goes up, and again across the tech sector there was an overhiring, and then there was a correction of that. But during that correction, like the AI boom happened, and a convenient excuse for them is that, oh, well, we got AI to do the job, right? Because once you do that, your stock prices go up because investors like hearing about AI. Are you using AI in your pipeline now, right? Let me give you money for that. So investors were looking for places to put. So it helped to just get rid of the workers they didn't want, right? That raises up a revenue and it raises up your stock prices. And then you say, well, it was AI that is replacing the work, whether it's true or not, right? And that also juices the stock prices. So it's actually quite muddy as to what is the cause for each particular company.
Yeah, kind of, but in certain sectors like coding, it is undeniable that AI is better at coding than humans. Yeah. Not only cheaper, but like literally better than humans can be.
You got to be specific in what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so hard for people to see the forest, the trees here, is because you really have to. I'm not like saying like, oh, I know so much because I'm saying you have to be plugged in to see the effects. There is so much nuance that you have to really be following this subject to really understand how and how much it's impacting different sectors. And it is a lot more than most people think. It just happens in very hard to see ways, I guess, would be the way to say it.
That's fair. Again, someone who isn't plugged into the gaming community and all these things, or at least the game making community and things like that, that's fair that it might be a blind spot that I have. And this is useful information. If it is something that you feel is going to be salient and the arguments you're making are persuasive to me, then yes, I think it's something that we should be doing now. Is we should be putting into common sense policies, regulation on various AIs. One thing I did see on Grok, on Elon Musk's AI, that it did recently, and this was very, very disturbing, is basically the AI is being able to generate people's nudes on demand. And so if you posted a picture on X, they can say, hey, Grok, take off their dress. And Grok will do it. And I've seen also them doing it with underage girls as well.
Yeah, it's deepfakes.
And it's just like on the timeline publicly, right?
As far as I can tell, it's not doing nude, it's doing the bikini thing, but like people are finding ways to get it like more closer and closer to nude. Like, okay, make the bikini made out of saran wrap, and it still blurs, but it's getting pretty
it's
nasty.
close enough for government work. Okay, it's close enough that I think that people are. This is something that if we want to put in regulations and things, I think that's a fair place to start. That there need to be harder guardrails on this and penalties if a company fails to put in safeguards and things like this for these things. Now, when it comes to AI use in general, I'd have to think more about what the specific policy should be and things like that. But I know that California, Newsom has had some legislation passed regarding AI deepfakes and things like that that's worth exploring. And yes, specifically in the big beautiful bill, Trump put in law that you could not regulate AI in certain ways. So that's worth bringing up too.
Again, like
Was
I
it
said,
law or
this
an
is across
executive
political
order?
One at a time, please.
Okay, go ahead.
You can go
I was
first.
clarifying in terms of, like you said, Trump put into law. Was it law? Not
It was in the
passed
big
on-
beautiful bill. It was one of the
Okay.
sections of the big beautiful bill. So it's law.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Just to say this is across the board, right? Like, it pains me to say badly, but Ted Cruz came up with a pretty good start, at least to legislation when he was talking about taking down like pics, right? Like giving people the ability to take down AI generated images on different platforms. Like there was a specific problem in terms of like boys harassing girls, like in high school boys or something, harassing girls with nudes, and he put forth legislation. I believe on the state level. I want to say. I believe it was on the state, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But in any case, there was a proposal to take down those images, give people an avenue to do that legally, right, for consequences when that didn't happen. But that's being taken away by Trump's ban on AI regulation. So, like again, this is a both sides issue.
Interesting.
I think Democrats can come out really strong if they focus on our digital security. Things like Meta is training its AI on everybody's private messages. I think if they take an early stance on that, it would be very beneficial when people start to see, when people start to understand that. And this kind of behavior isn't just going to stop with Meta. It's going to be across the board, where everything that you have said and done privately or pictures you've sent privately are going to be at the hands of AI companies. And we can point out that the
my
conservatives allowed
dick's
this to
gonna
happen.
be on AI, gang. We're gonna have
Some people really do care about that.
baked into the cake of the AI code. Okay, going into the future.
And then what
Just
people
letting
have
you know.
access to this as well. When you let the AI have access to it, you're inherently allowing people to have access to it as well. So I think that there's going to be quite a stand that the Democrats can take early and say, this administration is allowing this to happen. We need to stop this. And this would be very good moving into a 2026, moving into the midterms, then the presidential election as well. These people can't be trusted with handling this issue. We're the ones that can tackle it. I think that's like an obvious stance to take.
You know what? I'm sold. I'm sold. I think it won't be our major focus maybe, but I think it should one of our focuses should be that. I agree with you. I think that focusing on how it's using other people's data and how it's going to affect jobs, and people are going to lose their jobs, and we need to have something in place for them. I think that's a good way to go. Okay, with that said, we're coming up on 8 o'clock here. It is a New Year's. I have things I got to do, so we're going to end it now. But I want to give each of these lovely individuals closing thoughts. Time to shout yourselves out. I have all links to their stuff in my YouTube description page. You can go, you click on them, give them a follow, give them a subscribe, anything you need. And if you like this content and you want more conversations like this, we got them coming. Next week, we got some great debates. Irrelevant versus Single Player Carl on Asmongold's take on women in gaming. That'll be fun. That's Monday. On Tuesday, we're having Andrew Mercado and hopefully some other people to talk about the Somali fraud issue. I will be going on a Gibbs debate panel on Wednesday. God help me. And then on Friday, we're going to do a Pisco versus the world. So great content coming up. Tune in. Should be fun. Okay, with that, we're going to give it to Schwango first and let Prime have the last word. Go ahead, Schwango. Close us out.
Yeah. Realistically, for what I feel progressives and liberals want. There's not much of a divide there. There's really not. It's just how we get there, which is what I wanted to really focus on tonight. How are we getting there? How are we actually going to bring more attention to global warming? How are we actually going to deal with a wealth divide between races? How are we going to deal with sensible policing versus police brutality and accountability and all these other things? All I know is, like, with the population of America being in turmoil due to a MAGA presidency, we don't want to scare them away. We want to bring them in. It's better over here. It's good. We'll hold ourselves accountable. We'll hold the other side accountable. I even though everything sucks under a Trump presidency, it does bring a lot of hope for the future.
Cool. Thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate you. Give it to Cory. Go ahead.
Well, first, thank you for having me. Grateful to be here. Didn't get in as many slurs as I wanted to, but maybe next year. That's my resolution.
There's still time.
Yeah, you're right. There's still maybe next time I'll bring in all the slurs. But yeah, to I guess wrap up as sort of quickly as possible. Where, I think it's interesting in terms of one of the issues that was brought up is the last election was highly unprecedented. But then that was also brought up again in terms of 2020, where also 2020 was unprecedented because you had COVID and therefore, and you had Trump, disaster. And so it's always unprecedented. And I think sometimes you don't have to overthink it. Where, as Elder Drazi, I think, explicitly said, I think Prime also agreed with, and also Prime supported Biden in 2020. Biden was the most progressive at the time. And then something happened. And sometimes I don't think you need to necessarily overthink it. And I guess time will tell in terms of what actually happened, or what the correction will be. But I think even just this panel itself is maybe somewhat emblematic of maybe some of the issues on the left. Maybe we're dissecting too heavily of just maybe the fact that Joe Biden was progressive, the most progressive at the time, and that something happened. And I think Prime made a good case of something that did happen that did have an effect. The magnitude of the effect, hard to say, but I think it's clear that it did have an effect. And so I think there's a good case to be made to just lean into that, learn that lesson. Joe Biden was progressive, the most progressive at the time, and that we don't have to overthink it because, as an example, the right does not overthink the fact, or when Trump lost in 2020, and you look at, and again, we have multiple conversations. I think Wick themselves had multiple panels, or at least one, of what does the left do about, the lack of men voting for them? But the right never does this type of reflection of what does the right do in terms of getting more women on board in the movement? They don't care. At least they don't seem to care. At least as far as I can tell, but maybe I'm not consuming enough right-wing content. But they don't seem to care that they are not bringing women on board. And so maybe we don't need to care. We don't need to dissect too much of lean into progressivism, and I'll leave it there for now. But you can find me on Twitch, Cory Campbell 94, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram is Cory Campbell. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Hopefully have you more often in this coming year. Next up, Elder Drazi.
Hey, I'm Elder Drazi. I've been gone for a long time, but I'm going to be starting back up here soon. If you want to find me on usually just YouTube and Twitter. Sometimes I go on Twitch, but usually the stuff I do has to have the YouTube stamp of approval. I appreciate the conversation. It was nice to see you again, Prime. I don't know if we've ever talked, Cory, and it was nice to meet my debate partner as well. I still know how to say your name, but I think that the takeaway here should really be that we should really focus on how much we can get away with shifting the Overton window. And that AI is absolutely going to be the biggest issue in the next presidential election. I appreciate you having me, Wick.
Yeah, thanks for being here, and we'll have you more often as we go, now that you're settled in and back at it. Last but certainly not least, Prime.
First of all, thank you for having me, Wick. Much appreciated. I'm always happy to receive your invites. But there's some disagreements here. I don't agree that liberals and leftists necessarily want the same thing, and it's just how do we get there? I don't think that, and we don't. I mean, but to this point, we didn't really get a chance to discuss it. Like, I think that the processes that we propose, right, betray our values or lack thereof on these issues. I think that the liberals so oftentimes abandon the values they purport for political expedience, and they and which makes it so easy for them to reach out to conservatives to do things like barrel hug Dick Cheney and think that's going to be a good idea, right? Because even though Dick Cheney was a warmonger, right, even though he was a torturer, right, maybe if we do this, might get a few voters from the other side. Didn't even work. And in any case, so I think there's deep differences between liberals and leftists, and I think we kind of got distracted by the EIA thing and didn't really get to the bottom of exploring that. But still a good conversation overall. But I always also agree with what my friend Wick, sorry, not Wick, Wick's cool, but sorry, I meant Cory, excuse me.
All white people
said
look
about
the same to you, I know, but go on.
sorry. But what Cory said about like all these elections being unprecedented, there's always going to be every time, right? When we have a presidential election, we're looking at big national issues, and we're taking stock of the world. There's always going to be some large surprise, some big issue that maybe we didn't see previously, right? That sprang up on us, right, or maybe grew to proportions we didn't expect. At the time. It can't be the case that afterwards we simply say, well, it was all unprecedented, and so we can't look at that data. There's too many other factors, and so we can't look at the data. No, there's lessons to be learned, to be drawn from all these incidences, right? All these elections, all these moments in time where the country makes a decision. What I find on the liberal side is that what they really truly don't want to do is examine the policies that were put forth by either Joe Biden previously or by Kamala Harris within her campaign. That this was unimportant. In fact, there was other issues that did it. Maybe it was just messaging, right? Whatever it is, don't look at the policy because the policy indicts us. It indicts our values, again, or very much lack thereof. Which is why liberals get enthusiastically support of genocide. I said my piece. So I do appreciate everyone here. Again, shout out to Wick, shout out to Elder Drazi. Hopefully, I can see you again. Love to have further conversation. Schwango, is very nice to meet you. Cory, regular part of my panel. Find me at twitch.tv, youtube.com, kick.com, Primecayes, also on TikTok, PRIMECAYES. Love to have you.
Hey, thank you for being here. And again, give him a checkout, right? Give him a follow, give him a subscribe, all that. I guess we'll see you guys Monday. Wait, bye-bye, everyone. Bye.